Hello, everybody, and welcome to week 10, Sequential Art. Um, we're going to start off our origin story project talking about transitions. Um, and there's no better way to talk about transitions than to look at Scott McCloud. So, Scott McCloud breaks down transitions into 6 different formats. The first format that he mentions is a moment to moment format. And in this format, you're going to follow a story just from one panel to the next, um, just thinking about something changing only slightly. We're really thinking about this is happening, in the next moment, and in the next moment, and in the next moment. So it's a very linear process of storytelling. The next way of the next type of transition that he discusses is action to action. So in this type of narration, we're still kind of going, you know, from this moment to this moment, but we're really just skipping to the action phases. So the man standing at a bat or woman standing at bat in this scene, and then we're seeing the hit. We go directly to the hit. You know, we see here's this drink that we're drinking from. Here we are drinking. Now we're burping. There's no time in between. There's nothing wasted in between. We're just telling the very details of what that story is. Third method that McCloud suggests is subject to subject. So think of this as kind of like looking at, you know, um, Mork speaking in this panel, and then we look over and we see Mindy speaking in the next panel. You know, we're really just we're focusing on one thing, we're focusing on the other. We're focusing on the city. We're now focusing on people down here walking through the city streets. Okay. So, next we have scene to scene. So, here we have um, something going on in this one scene, and then we see something else going on. So if we were to look back at that city scene, maybe we see, and it's all quiet across the city tonight, and then we look, except for down here where this evil do-gooder is doing this other thing over here, blah blah blah, and it's terrible and awful. So we have, you know, this one scene's going on, but now this other scene is going on, and so that tells your story in a very different way. Um, the fifth way to think about it is aspect to aspect. So here we're very much looking again, kind of like that subject to subject. We're looking at maybe changing points of view or changing the way we're looking. So maybe we're looking at a character who's drawing in the park. Then we like shift so that we're above that character and looking down, and we can kind of see what they're drawing in the park. And we see that they're all alone in the park because there's nobody near them. We wonder what's going on with this character. Then maybe we come in really close on the character. We see that character has like a really terrible bald spot, and, like some really unkempt clothes, and maybe there's like a paper bag with a bottle next to said character, and this story starts to kind of come together a little bit more as we see different aspects of what's going on in that scene. So that the aspect to aspect is really going to kind of stay within that one scene. We just kind of shift ourselves around that scene. Maybe we see from the point of view of the character, maybe we just see different angles of the character, but we're really just staying within that scene and moving around. The last way that we do transitions is called non sequitur. And non sequitur, maybe we're following a particular storyline, and then all of a sudden, bam, um, sweet. So I walk into the diner. I sit down and order a sandwich. I am expecting my sandwich, and I'm talking about whatever with the guy next to me, and we're having a cup of coffee. And then the waitress comes over and says, "Here it is," and slap down and down into the next panel. We look over, and there's a goldfish bowl in front of me. Um, and we don't see anything else. It's just goldfish bowl. Or let's see. You're driving down the road, and then driving down the road, we look out the one window, we see people on the side of the road. We look out the other window, we see people on the side of the road. We look out the front again, and it's a galactic space station in front of me, and there's nothing doing with the road anymore. It's just a space station. And then maybe, the next panel we're still driving down the road, or we see the car from above it. So it's just like this weird little something thrown into the middle of a story, and it can kind of give an idea of atmosphere to your story. Like if you have that like weird space thing in the middle of it, what does that mean to your plot? Like maybe you feel like you're in the middle of this huge space land, or you're a foreigner, or you're a stranger in a strange land. So that's the way that you can kind of use that. So each of these different transition types can really mold the way that you're thinking about your story. So if we return, think about your moment to moment. Like that's when you're like really wanting people to slow down and notice the details in what's going on. I really want you to see, this is what I do in this step, this is what I do in the next step, this is what happens in the next step. And then, excuse me, sorry. And then the action to action, you're going to really only be concerned with what's happening. Like I'm doing a bank robbery, so I'm going to show the guy telling everybody to get down. I'm going to show the guy trying to get into the safe. A really good example of an action to action is if you think about the scene where the Joker's breaking into the bank in the beginning of the Dark Knight, and you're watching all the various clowns doing various things in the bank. It's really like it's an action to action thing. We're not really following any slow action. We're going immediately to the next action. And then that subject to subject, that can really make you pay attention to the different characters, or the different settings that you really want people to be aware of. It can really be great for setting up your story. The scene to scene, again, you're telling different aspects of a story by jumping from one scene to the next scene to the next scene to the next scene. They do this all the time in like fantasy novels, if you have read those, or science fiction novels too. Aspect to aspect we already spoke about in non sequitur as well. Okay, so in particular your origin story. Here's some questions I would like you to consider. I would like you to think about the who's, the what's, the where's, the when's, and the how's. So really, like, who is your character, and what is your character? What is the place that you're in? Who are the other people that may be interacting, or creatures that may be interacting with your creature? Where is this? How long ago is this? How is it done? And some of this is really going to define the different transitions that you're going to use in your comic. So if it's something that takes an awful long time, maybe you want to do perhaps like it takes a long time and has to do with a bunch of different groups of people. Maybe you want to do a scene to scene with like a year over top of it. Or if it's like something that happens really quickly, maybe it's a moment to moment, and you want to show the various details. Or if it's like just something really weird that doesn't make a lot of sense, like maybe you do throw in like that non sequitur in the middle. So, and then how do we make tell the story smoothly? So the story, if we want the story to run smoothly, then we really need to think about which transitions meet up with our storyline the best. What type of transition matches up with that story? And then ultimately, how are we going to fit this 3-page story this entire story, which could be really huge, into just 3 pages. So very important questions. All right, so now for your project 4, I want you to be working with the same character that you created for project 3. And that character that you created in project 3, I want you to then be making so for next week, I want you to be working on your sketches, and then for week 2 you'll do pencils of your completed panels, and then for week 3 you'll end up doing your final inked and rendered origin story. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what you do with your characters in the comic setting. So good luck, and thanks folks.